Hey guys, today we'll be covering a 2018 drama film called Not Cinderella's Type. At the start of the movie, we are introduced to the main character, an 8-year-old girl named Indy. She lives with her loving and caring mother, while her father has been absent from their lives since before Indy was born. Despite this, the mother and daughter duo live a happy life. On her 10th birthday, Indy gets a cat as a birthday gift from her mother. This delights her a lot, and she believes that she will have a happy life forever. Unfortunately, Indy's assumptions turn wrong when after just 2 years, her mother passes away in a car accident. With no one else to call family, she reluctantly moves in with her Uncle Dave, Aunt Clarice, and their 2 evil daughters, Jaden and Caitlin. The new family makes Indy live in their attic, which they usually use as a storage room. To make matters worse, they also make her do all the chores and treat her like an outcast. 6 years pass by, and Indy still lives in the same attic with her uncle's family. The attic that once looked like a storage room now looks beautiful with Indy's work. She does the household chores every day, but Dave and his family are never happy. They always find new ways to humiliate her, and sometimes even cross the line by insulting her dead mother. One morning during breakfast, Jada complains about her old phone to her mother. Hearing this, Clarice suggests she buy a new one after class. A happy Jada throws her phone in the trash, and it cracks a little. Meanwhile, Indy, who is watching everything, asks to use the phone. Jada simply shrugs and leaves, making Indy happy with the new but cracked phone. Indy walks to and from school every day, while her cousins drive. They even have their lunch outside at fancy restaurants, but Indy has to settle with the cafeteria lunch, as Clarice doesn't give her any pocket money. Because of her shy nature, Indy is almost non-existent in school. However, she has a solitary friend named Maxton, who always sticks by her side. On the contrary, all the students are crazy for the most popular kid, Bryant Bailey, including Jada and Caitlin. Indy doesn't understand why everyone likes Bryant. However, she doesn't care much. One morning, Indy leaves her bedroom door open while leaving for school, and her cat gets out on the street. Suddenly, Bryant's car approaches at full speed, and he unfortunately runs over the cat. Witnessing this, Indy rushes out and cries while holding her dead cat. Bryant tries to apologize for the accident, but a distraught Indy doesn't listen. Later during PE class, Maxton asks Indy if she will ever give Bryant a chance to apologize, to which she replies that she doesn't want to forgive him. When Indy falls to the ground running, Bryant helps her up and apologizes. However, an emotional Indy reveals that after her mom passed away, she only had the cat as her friend, but now she is alone. Although Bryant tries to talk to her, she ignores him and leaves. The scene then cuts to Bryant's house, where he is having dinner with his dad and 2 sisters. Bryant's father, Dr. Bailey, sees his son quiet and asks why. Bryant worries that Indy will never forgive him. Hearing this, Dr. Bailey recalls an old memory where he sees Indy's mother lying on the ground after a truck hit her. Although Dr. Bailey tries to save her, she passes away after requesting him to give a message to Indy that her mother will always be there for her. Following this, Dr. Bailey suggests Bryant befriend Indy and console her. The next day, Bryant approaches Maxton at school and asks about Indy. However, the latter informs him that Indy is sick, so she is absent. Meanwhile, at home, Clarice shouts at Indy for not preparing breakfast and getting sick. Later, Bryant comes to meet Indy and says he wants to be friends with her. He then suggests they spend some time together so that they can get to know each other better. Indy is skeptical about the idea, but as Clarice likes Bryant, she reluctantly agrees. Soon they go out for a walk, and Bryant shares what his dad told him earlier. Just then, Indy remembers that there was an unknown man who gave her the same message before the funeral. Later, Indy reveals to Bryant that her mother had named her Cindy Ella Zimmerman. However, no one used her real name except for her mother. When Bryant calls her a modern-day Cinderella, Indy says she prefers to be called only Indy. After a while, Bryant asks her for her forgiveness again, and this time around, she agrees. Once they return, Bryant asks Indy about her room. Soon he learns that Indy still lives in the attic, although there are a few spare bedrooms in the house. However, Indy is now used to her living conditions. Bryant finds this arrangement weird, but Jada and Caitlin suddenly interrupt them. They invite him to a party they are having the next day. The girls try to make him stay, but Bryant makes up some excuse and leaves. Later, Indy gets downstairs to find a very messy living room and dining room. Clarice orders her to tidy everything for Jada and Caitlin's party the next day. She also warns her to stay away from the party as she is sick. The following day, as Indy finishes tidying up the house, her cousin's friends arrive at the party. Because she was ordered not to attend the party, Indy sits alone on the trampoline outside, missing her mother. When Bryant arrives at the party, he immediately searches for Indy, but she is nowhere to be found. Finally, after a bit of asking around, Bryant finds her outside and wonders about her absence from the party. Indy reveals that she is not invited, and this shocks Bryant. He also learns that the family always treats her like an outsider. Hearing all this, Bryant feels sad for Indy and takes her to a restaurant for dinner. He shares about his mother and how she died 6 years ago. As they keep talking, Bryant says that he likes Indy and wants a relationship with her. However, Indy is afraid of Claire's reaction and denies the approach. Later, when Bryant drops her home, they decide to keep their friendship a secret, as per Indy's request. The next day at school, Indy and Bryant text each other during class. Seeing this, Maxton asks the reason behind her good mood. Indy tries to dodge the question, but he keeps pressuring her. Finally, Indy tells him about Bryant and asks him to keep it a secret. Maxton is taken aback to hear this and asks her if she told Bryant about her boyfriend. When a confused Indy asks who he's talking about, Maxton replies his name. This shocks Indy, but Maxton reveals that he has always liked her and has stayed friends with her because she didn't want a relationship until a year ago. As they are discussing further, the bell suddenly interrupts them and they head back to their respective classes, agreeing to talk later. After school, Indy meets Maxton again and expresses that she has always seen him as her best friend. Just then, Maxton kisses her and asks her to be his girlfriend. Startled by her first kiss, Indy becomes confused and asks for some time to decide. Before leaving, the duo agree to go out on a date after class the next day. Later, Indy updates Bryant about Maxton's proposal over the phone, and being the sensible guy that he is, Bryant leaves the decision to her. The following day, Indy makes up an excuse about some school project to Clarice so that she can meet Maxton. While on the date, Maxton invites her to his upcoming soccer match, and she agrees. At night, Bryant calls Indy, and they talk about various stuff. As she recounts her day, Bryant realizes that he might lose her and shares this fear with his father. However, Dr. Bailey praises his son for being a good friend and letting Indy make her own decisions. In the next scene, Bryant takes Indy to a playground where the latter reveals that Clarice is treating her as a servant. This angers Bryant, and he starts berating Clarice for being rude to her niece. Unfortunately, as they are talking, Jada and Caitlin arrive and see them together. They then report it to their mother, who becomes enraged at Indy and warns her to stay away from Bryant, mentioning that he just pities her. Later, when Bryant calls her to know about the situation at home, Indy lies to him, saying everything is fine. The next day, Indy again lies to Clarice and goes to watch Maxton's soccer match. During the game, Maxton receives a hit from the opponent and gets injured. This worries Indy, and she immediately rushes to help. After a while, as Indy is escorting him off the pitch, Maxton suddenly kisses her again, this time in front of everyone. Sadly, Indy's neighbor Mrs. Sanders witnesses the incident and informs Clarice. Upon reaching home, Indy calls Bryant and, as usual, briefs him on everything about her day. Just then, Clarice shouts and calls Indy to get downstairs immediately. Seeing Indy abruptly leave the call, Bryant realizes that she might be in some trouble. Meanwhile, Dave and Clarice ask Indy about her whereabouts in the daytime. Slowly, they also begin to criticize how her mother raised her. When they start to talk nonsense about her mother, Indy gets angry. She then accuses them of mistreating her all these years and constantly badmouthing her mother. The couple is shocked at Indy's outburst, and they threaten to punish her. Soon, Indy returns to her room and plans to run away from the house. She quickly packs her bags and calls Maxton to tell him about the situation. Unfortunately, Maxton is at the hospital and is unable to meet her. With no options left, she calls Bryant for help, and luckily, he manages to sneak inside her room. He assures Indy that his father works in a child care center and will be able to help her. Bryant then calls his father, and after explaining everything to him, he takes Indy to his house. The following day, Indy meets Bryant's sisters at breakfast. She is surprised to see everyone behaving nicely to one another. The Bailey family welcomes her wholeheartedly, and Indy realizes what she's been missing all these years. Dr. Bailey suggests Indy stay in one of their apartments by the pool house. In the meantime, 2 officers arrive to talk to Dr. Bailey. They inform him that Dave and Clarice are still Indy's legal guardians, and the court might send her back to them. Indy overhears the conversation and runs out of the house crying. Later, Bryant finds her sitting under a tree and manages to bring her back. As they return, Indy is surprised to see Dr. Bailey and his 2 daughters worry about her. Dr. Bailey then tells Indy that they might be her new foster family once the case is over. Hearing this, Indy gets overwhelmed with joy and hugs them. In the next scene, Indy goes to the child care office with Dr. Bailey for an interview. There, she sees Dave and Clarice, who are busy faking tears. After the interview is over, Dr. Bailey takes her home. Later, Indy receives a call from Maxton. She explains everything that is going on, and Maxton expresses his guilt for not being able to get to Indy when she needed him the most. He then apologizes for his mistake and asks to meet with her. The following day, Dr. Bailey approaches Indy and informs her that her mother had about $300,000 insurance policy. He also reveals that Dave took her rightful money, and now they can use this information to make a case in their favor. The next day, Brian asks Indy to go to the prom with him by the pool, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Maxton comes to meet Indy and apologizes for everything. While they reconcile, he realizes that they are better off as friends and wishes her good luck with her case. After a while, Maxton leaves, and Indy goes inside to prepare for the prom. She buys a new dress and is very happy with how her new life is going. On the day of their prom, Bryant gives her a new cat, and Indy gets emotional. Eventually, Indy wins the case against Dave and Clarice and receives her dead mother's insurance benefit. She then takes up Dr. Bailey's earlier offer and moves into the pool house apartment. As the movie ends, Indy gets a new car with the insurance money and saves the rest for later.